Woodworking. We're going to continue with creating our chess set. One of the big challenges of the chess set was how on earth was I going to do the knights, because most of the pieces you can do practically on the lathe itself with any manual work to it. The knights are of course a completely different story. Classical knight shape is like a horse's head, so I had to really think about, okay, how am I going to create a shape that I can easily reproduce to have like at least 4 similar looking knight pieces. Now of course the foot of the piece, you know, we can do that on the lathe. It's the rest. Now what I was aiming to do is removing as much material as possible while I have my block on the lathe. That means I had to figure out a basic shape to create on the lathe that I would then shape into something resemble a little horsey head or a knight piece, as you will. The way that I did it to actually get an idea on what shape it should have on the lathe is actually downloaded a picture of a very simple knight design, and I just put it into paint and put it have an image on its side, and then I kind of flipped it over, so almost like you're spinning it, and you would see the contours that you would have to follow while it is on the lathe. Surprisingly, it turns out to be a shape that is going to be quite easy to do, and it's going to take a minimum of manual labor to complete. What also is going to help me is the way that my lathe can lock its jaws in a position. I will show you the details on that later when we get to it. But it looks like what we first are going to produce is a wooden butt plug, and we're going to take it from there. So as per usual, we're going to take our rough piece of wood and we're going to turn it round smooth at a diameter about 30 mils. That's all the pieces been shaped that I've been working on, so we're going to start with that. Okay, give it a bit of speed in there, and as before we're going to do this all with the use of the roughing gouge. I'm just going to pan the camera a little bit more so that you can properly see better. Give it a bit more speed. So there we go. Now I'm going to straighten out the foot here, make my edge. There we go. Just going to work it a little bit in. Make it slightly concave, just slightly, so the piece will sit better. Now before we did all these like keen measurements, but for the foot I do know that I want to have like the width of this blade as my template of putting the foot in. So this would be the start. That's one. That's two. Right, for my height, I've kind of like going for about a 60 mils. So I am going to mark that one. So it's going to be around here. There we go. That's 60. So I'm going to mark that one as well. There we go. Now for the design of our what we said butt plug, I want to have the tapering of it around here. So it's going to be its thinnest around here. So it's going to go in kind of like a concave shape inwards and then round outwards. So going to be using again one of the pen tools, this one here. So let's see if we can get that started. So forgot to put my mark there. Nice good visual mark. It's very important, so you know what you are doing. So I'm just going to start taking off. Oh, I killed my mark there. There we go. Like in preschool, you get extra point for staying inside the marks. Now for the depth that I want to go there is I want to have it around say 19 to 20 millimeters. I'm going to go for 20. And actually what I might do is just give a straight mark in there. There we go. So now I know how much I need to go in there. It just makes it a little bit easier if you like put in edges and put in marks. You know exactly where to go and how deep you should cut. So I'm going to make that concave cut now. Looks like we got our base done there. Now, another thing that I need to determine is where the height of my second part should be, or the thickness. So I'm basically going to mark that out as well. So that's going to be around here. I'm just going to make a little mark there. And I know I keep referring to this basic shape as a butt plug, but believe me, it really helps when you can envision what it should be looking like. So we're going to be cutting this more roundish. Well, this is concave, this is going to be more roundish, rounding in there. So let's get a start on that. And you can see the telltale signs of blunt tools. It's not really a very smooth shape, but means that we have to sand more. Alright, now we're going to get this nicely rounded off. So I'm just move my center support out of the way. There we go. Just slowing it down a bit because this is really hard stuff. Now we're going to round this around here. Basically smoothing it over from one round shape to the other. Okay. Now I still have a bit of material there sticking out, so I'm just going to get my sharp chisel and just cut this off. You can even use the sharp chisel just to give it a little bit of contour. To smooth things out a little bit. Don't get cocky because it will be easy to catch. Now I have some tool markings in the middle, and since this is really probably one of the hardest pieces of wood I had on the lathe, I don't want to sand it all down, so I'm just going to get this nice and slow, get my pen tool, and actually now that I'm looking at it, I think my problem here was that I was turning at too high of a speed. So I'm just going to edge off. Trying to get rid of that tool mark. Trying to smooth this out just a little bit more. We're going to try to smooth this area out. Then this inside rim. That does look a bit better now. So let's see what we got. Okay, this is like quite rough here, so what I'm going to do is sand it down or give it one more pass with the tools. I'm just going to go for sanding it down. But you can see as why I described the whole thing as a butt plug, because that is basically what it looks like. But we're ready for the next part. Now, I have two choices now, right? I can go for all the other cuts that I need to do and leave the sanding for the last bit, or I can just start working on the foot, because this foot is basically going to keep its shape. All the other work we're going to do is going to be on this end here, so I'm not really that worried about the roughness here, only here. So what I'm going to do is the sanding. I want to share something that I learned and might be a really helpful tip. Usually I use these boxes of sandpaper. They are really handy. You know, you pull up a strip. You got from 150 grit to all the way to 600 grit. Basically, you pull up a strip, you know, and you just tear it off like that, and you know, you got yourself some nice strip of sanding paper to smooth out your piece. The only problem with that is, you know, as soon as you start using it, like the surface you're using, it gets clogged up pretty quickly. So you end up using a lot of pieces of this, and you can't really reuse it. It just gets too clogged up with the material. Now, I have started using a different kind of sanding paper. It's actually called a sanding mesh, which basically looks something like this. And if you look at it, it is more a mesh. And what happens is you sand, and actually the material goes through the holes in the mesh. And when you just give it a tap, you know, it all comes loose, and basically you've got, you know, yourself another piece of good working sanding paper. It's going to last you much longer than this, right? When I first started using this, I had some comments from other turners saying like, okay, you know, that's rubbish, don't use it. But at the time it was the only thing I could get, just being in the wrong store, I guess. And then recently I got this, and this is really the eye-opener. I'm not saying this is bad, I'm just saying this is better. So, okay. So this is the roughest bit I have. It's a 180 grit, so we're going to be using that. Okay, and hopefully we'll see it in action. Now, I did use this on something else, so it might have worn down a bit, but we're just going to use it, see what happens. So, turning it down a little bit, and I'm just going to use this. And you can see it, the material is actually coming through the mesh. And you see, like, you know, it gets clogged up, you tap it, it's gone. Right? So that is actually pretty good. Also, an advantage is that, you know, this is way stronger, so it can take a little bit more abusing. It's also a little bit more flexible, so because I do use my fingers to make sure I'm getting into those roundings. And great thing about it, it is double-sided. So, you know, even if you do see, it's like, okay, you know, it's going to lose its abrasiveness at one point or another. It means that, you know, while you're working, you know, you don't have to stop. You can just continue, use the other side, you know, you'll be good to go. So, and keep it moving, right? Because if you keep it just in one spot, you're going to have like scrape marks in it. So you do want to keep your mesh moving or your sandpaper, whatever you're using, right? And I've been told that you get better results at slower speeds. Don't think, you know, you're going to have a smoother finish by sanding this at ultra high speed with a 180 grit like this, because it's not going to be looking any prettier. So now that's a reasonable smooth finish that I'm happy with for the time being. Just a little bit more here. This is like one of the hardest pieces of wood I've been working with so far. But there you have it. There is our butt plug. Okay, and this is going to be the basis shape that we're going to be working on. Now, the next thing we're going to do is going to lock the piece in place. I'm just going to show you. Some lathes have this lock mechanism right here at the back, and when you turn it, it goes in. Okay, and what it actually does, and I'll show you. Okay, you see these notches here, right? There's a pin, the one that you pull at the back, you pull it out, it releases and it holds into a notch. That means you can lock your piece, you know, and just basically work it, you know, with rasps, files, whatever you want, you know, and it will stay. It also means that if you basically, let me adjust this, unlock it, you can turn it an exact 180 degrees and then lock it again, and that is really what we want to do. So now I was looking at my piece here and I noticed that, you know, this side here, this grain, you know, was a bit rough, so it would stand to reason that I'm going to pick these sides, not the smooth sides, but pick these sides to take material off to come to our final shape. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I locked it into place. I'm going to get my files, or my rasps, any more rasps than files actually. Okay, because the next thing that I want to do is I want to flatten the head, right? And I wanted to flatten the head with about, I say 17 to 18 mil. So I want to take about this much off. Okay, so I'm going to try and mark that off as good as I can. Right, again I locked it in and I've started filing it down like this. So as we see, we've smoothed out one side of the piece. So what we do now, we unlock the lathe, we turn it around, and again lock it into place to smooth out the second part here. So again, I'm looking to support it a little bit to prevent breakage. And we start again with our wood rasp. Now we're taking the other side off as well. And we're just going to sand it down, and I always like to use my air sand. Okay, now that we have both sides smoothed out, and it's actually slightly tapered, so it's following almost the line of that concave first bit here. We're going to have to cut out a bit right here, and basically follow the line of this here. In here, it will give me also a little bit more stability. There we go. Now you see where we're going with this. So I'm just going to put it back to the lathe. Right. I'm going to take my ceramic blade and cut this. Just kind of smooth the piece. Oh, he's still a lock. Stage, just getting right. Okay, time to get some 600 grit onto it. Whoa, careful now. There we are. Now the only thing I don't like at the moment is these sides are a little bit too rough for my liking. And this one is not too bad. This one, it's a little bit too flattish for me. We're getting there. Then we have our shape, our horse. So I'm going to take it off. So this is not going to be the most famous knight shape I have. I mean, I actually already made one. There's this one. Now, this one has already been tainted and French polish, so I hope this one will come out a bit more acceptable. I'm going to do some more sanding here because I'm not really happy with it, with this area here. So I'm going to do some more sanding and then we taint it and we'll see what we come up with. So, but basically we're looking for a very basic shape that can identify the piece, you know, on the board as like, okay, this is a knight, this is completely something different. But I like the way it turned out. This piece of wood is like unbelievably hard. I actually have to figure out what the hell this stuff is because it's blunted all my chisels. Alright, okay, so that's it for now, and thank you for tuning in, and I hope you learned something. I hope I learned something. If you do see something in the videos that you come across and say like, dude, you're doing that completely wrong. You know, just drop me a message, because I'm learning, okay? So I'm trying to figure this out as I go along. Alright, thank you for watching, and see you next time on Oakwood Woodworking.